seen them walking around. I know a lot of folks taking pictures with them. Hey, these are some of the real deal. These are the guys that we're here for today. I'd like to introduce to you a couple of guys who are going to give us kind of a look back on the past to what they were thinking way back when, 224 years ago. And I got to tell you, being 224 plus years, they still look pretty darn good. I'd like to welcome Thomas Jefferson, Ken Hammondtree, and Ben Franklin, Dennis Harbert, who'd like to come up right now and give a little talk. Gentlemen, big hands, some of our founding fathers. Gentlemen. After you, sir.
I've never used one of these.
New invention.
Like that, Mr. Frank? In the summer of 1774, I, Thomas Jefferson, wrote a pamphlet called A Summary of Abuse from Mother England. It was distributed across the 13 colonies. 2 years later, on a very hot and humid July the 4th, Thursday, 1776, 56 men gathered together in Philadelphia. There they debated for weeks on a declaration of freedom, independence from Mother England. After hours and hours of debate, they finally came to the last paragraph of the Declaration of Independence to be submitted to King George of England. The words all of you should have memorized in your hearts. For support of this declaration, with a firm reliance upon the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. That's exactly what those 56 men had to do over the next 8 years of the American Revolution, as Dr. Franklin and I attest to. Of the 56 men that signed the Declaration of Independence, 12 of those men lost all their property. Their farms, their homes were confiscated by the British government. Most of the homes were burnt to the ground. Their livestock was sold. By the end of the American Revolution, those 12 individuals had to declare bankruptcy. Of the 56 men who signed the Declaration of Independence, 9 of those men lost their lives over the next 8 years on the various battlefields of the American Revolutionary War. Of the 56 men who signed the Declaration of Independence, 5 of those men were captured by the British within 6 months. They were tortured to death, and their bodies were confined to Boston Harbor. Of the 56 men who signed the Declaration of Independence, 2 of those men lost all their sons who were killed in action on the battlefields of the American Revolution. Of the 56 men who signed the Declaration of Independence, 1 of those men had all his sons captured by the British, never to be heard from again. So as you can see, ladies and gentlemen, the 56 men who signed the Declaration of Independence gave all. And the Declaration of Independence was the beginning of the Constitution of the United States of America. There are 2 articles that are very dear to Mr. Franklin and I: the Declaration of Independence and the Northwest Ordinance of 1787 that established the lands that we know of today as Ohio. Both of these documents were the foundation for the greatest work that mankind has ever experienced: the Constitution of the United States of America. Contained within the Constitution of the United States of America are your basic freedoms. Mr. Franklin and I wanted to make sure we were on the committee of 5 to write the Declaration. Although I get credit for writing not only the Declaration, but most of the Constitution, I think, Mr. Franklin, you did most of the editing. Am I correct on that? I'm not really a good speller. But contained within the Constitution of the United States, you will find your basic freedoms. Freedom of religion. If you want to be a Catholic, you can be a Catholic. If you want to be a Jew, you can be Jewish. If you want to be Protestant, you can be Protestant. If you want to be a Quaker, you can be a Quaker. You can be anything you want to be because you have freedom of religion that most countries of the world will not guarantee. Also within the Constitution of the United States, you have freedom of speech. You have freedom of the press. You don't have to worry and look over your shoulder if you're about to say something that might offend somebody, like in some countries where the press and books are censored. The Constitution of the United States guarantees you have freedom of expression. The Constitution of the United States guarantees you have the right to bear arms, and no one has a right to take those from you. It's built within the Constitution of the United States of America. And also the Constitution, you have not only freedom of speech, freedom of religion, you have freedom of the press, and you have freedom to be who you want to be under the greatest capitalistic system the world has ever seen. If you're ever arrested, Mr. Franklin, there's built within the Constitution guarantees to a fair trial. And you can be tried by your peers in a jury, or if you decide, you can be tried before some judges. You have contained within this leather bag, given to you, we the people, the Constitution of the United States of America. This is not free. I believe someone said, to be born free is a privilege. To die free is a terrible responsibility. It is your responsibility as we the people to protect the Constitution of the United States. And every time you elect a president and he stands before the nation and he has to swear that he will protect this Constitution against all foreign and domestic enemies. And if they don't, whether it's the president or whether it's anyone, we, the people, have a right to take care of it. It's built within the Constitution of the United States of America. Every time you see a veteran, Mr. Franklin, we need to shake their hand and thank them for their service to our country and the protection of our Constitution. Because every veteran, whether it's Navy, whether it's Army, Marines, they have to swear that they will protect this Constitution of the United States of America. Now, I don't know where you stand today, but I know that we 55 individuals, one less than the signing of the Declaration of Independence, when we signed the Constitution of the United States, we stood together, did we not, Mr. Franklin? Mr. Franklin basically said these words, "Gentlemen, we are going to have to stand together as traitors against Mother England, or we will surely be hung on separate gallows from Mother England. But we have to stand together as we the people." I know not where you stand today, but I love my colleague, Patrick Henry. Give me liberty or give me death. God bless the United States of America. Thank you. Now I give to you my colleague, my esteemed colleague, Mr. Franklin, Dr. Franklin.
Thank you, Thomas. I was born in Boston on Milk Street in 1706. My parents were subjects of the crown. That made me a subject of the crown. 80 years later, I was no longer a subject of the crown. I was a citizen of the United States of America. That was brought about by the Declaration of Independence and an 8-year bloody war. And at the end of that war, in Philadelphia, 55 men got together, and the major preoccupation of that hot, sweltering summer was, how shall we govern ourselves? We've now thrown off the yoke of King George III, and we have a loose confederation of 13 colonies, and the Shays' Rebellion in New York that looked like it was on the brink of turning us into anarchy. We proved that the loose confederation needed more structure. So 55 men got together in Philadelphia all that hot, sweltering summer, and we kept the windows closed so nobody in the streets would know what was going on. Wow, we paid a price for that. This document, which you can pick up here today, is the product of that long, hot summer. We answered the question, how shall we govern ourselves? And I have Franklin's Army here today to help you understand. When I came out into the street one day, a woman said to me, "Sir, what have you given us?" And I said to her, "A republic if you can keep it." What exactly does that mean? It's a two-part question. What have you given us? A republic. What is a republic? What else could we have given you? And what does if you can keep it mean? Ben's Army, come on up, guys. This is an attempt to answer that question. What else could we have given you, and why did we give you what we gave you? This line up here. Should be, oh, there's the other troops. Okay, everybody hold up their cards so everybody can see. Now, lest you think this is confusing, it is. Anybody see the word republic? Where's the republic child? There she is down there. Okay, we need to rearrange these so we can fully understand what is it we gave you and why did we give you that. We had just come off an 8-year bloody rebellion where we thought King George III was a tyrant. We're going to put King George down here. King George wanted to control everything that went on in the colonies. And as a result of that, join your tyranny, friend. He believed in 100% government. He was the supreme dictator that would control everything that went into the colonies. Down there with them. So the picture is, the king's in charge and we're in charge of nothing. He likes total government, minimum liberty, and he's the tyrant. Now, Shays' Rebellion, which was a group of farmers in upstate New York, started to mutiny against unfair taxation that ended up in lots of them taking their farms. So the colonies became very paranoid about the opposite of King George taking over. Down here, no government. Down this way. Here. You're a no government guy. You're down there too. Okay, so when we have no government, we have this anarchy. It's chaos. Nobody's in charge. So the possibilities are we can create another king, and there are those that wanted George Washington to be the king. We can create a democracy where everybody here gets an equal vote. Let's put you down here a little bit. Let's put you on the other side of it. Okay, or we could have an oligarchy. Mr. George Hamilton, he was an advocate of oligarchy, the rule of the few. And what we gave you was a republic. A republic is the rule of law. So down on that end, we have the rule of one. Down on this end, we have the rule of no one. Democracy is the rule of the majority, and republic is the rule of law, and oligarchy is the rule of the few. The predominant form of government in the world has always been oligarchy. A few people get together and want to run everything. Republic is the rule of law. Let's bring this republic up. She's the queen of this group. Give her a big hand. So a republic is the rule of law. It's not the rule of men. So we are going to establish a constitution that clearly controls who does what to who when. The concept of three branches of government, with each having limited powers, left to its own devices, it degenerates into oligarchy, which eventually goes to tyranny. So the structuring of the government is to constantly pull us back from the brink of anarchy and to keep us out of tyranny. And the answer to the woman, if you can keep it. Who would know that there are groups of men in every society who want to be the king, who want to limit your liberties? The purpose of government is to limit your liberty. Every time the rule is made by the government, it means that that individual decision is taken away from you. Now, a certain amount of liberty, we all live freer, and we have structure, and we can live our lives to the maximum. Total liberty is an illusion that we cannot have. The question is, at what point on this continuum should we strive to be? Little Mr. Libertarian, you know, he doesn't look like it, but he thinks we should smoke pot. We'll put him toward the end of they get a little carried away with how much liberty we should have. At some point, no matter how well-intentioned, too much government is tyranny. No matter how good it feels, when the government is taking too much care of you, it's bondage. So we constantly have to strive for the rule of law. And it is up to each individual citizen to keep the republic if you can. Big hand for our helpers. Those are the people who will suffer if we don't keep a republic. You know, they've got a stake in it, and when their turn at bat comes up, they are faced with the same responsibilities that we are. We need to preserve the republic for future generations. Thank you.
There we go. Thank you, Dr. Franklin. Big hand. For both of them. I switched.